Fourth grade lesson 12.1 is measurement benchmarks. This is just, there's a lot of ways to measure things, right? There's different scales and things that are used in the world. Today's lesson is just about what makes sense for measuring things compared to things in our real world, in our real life situations. So let's take a look. Essential question, how can you use benchmarks to understand the relative sizes of measurement units? Basically, we know we use a measurement system, 1 foot, 1 yard, 1 pint, 1 quart, but our brains may not know what those measurements look like in general. Maybe some of them we do and some we don't. So this lesson is about helping our brains make that connection. Let's unlock the problem. Jake says the length of his bike is about 4 yards long. Use the benchmark units below to determine if Jake's statement is reasonable. Well, let's take a look at these customary units of length, the inch, the foot, the yard, and a mile, and see if we can get an idea for what do those lengths really look like compared to something around us. So let's look at the inch. The inch is about the length of your fingertip from your top knuckle, that top bendy part, up to the tip of your finger. That's about 1 inch. So if we think about it, would we want to measure this bicycle length in 1 inch marks? Do we want to get down on the ground there and put our little fingertip along there and count up a bunch of them? Doesn't make sense to do it with that, right? A foot is about the width of a license plate on a car. Think about what that looks like on a car. We see cars driving around all over the place and they have their license plates on there. 1 foot is about the length of one of those. A yard is about the length of a baseball bat. And 1 mile is a distance you can run in about 20 minutes. It's close to the amount of about 17 soccer fields all lined up. And if you were walking 1 mile, it would probably take you about 20 minutes to walk that far. Okay, and it says a mile is a customary unit for measuring length or distance. The benchmark shows the distance you can walk in about 20 minutes. That's what they're explaining here. Okay. He said he compared it to a baseball bat. A baseball bat is about 1 yard long. Since Jake's bike is shorter than 4 times the length of the baseball bat, his bike is shorter than 4 yards long. So he says it's 4 yards and 1 baseball bat is 1 yard. If we lined up 4 baseball bats, it would be much bigger than his bicycle, right? So Jake's statement isn't reasonable. It's much longer it's much shorter than 4 baseball bats. Jake's bike is about one or 2 baseball bats, 1 baseball bat long, let's say. So it's only about 1 yard long. If it was much longer, it would be hard to ride around corners and stuff. Let's use the benchmark customary units for liquids. Customary units of liquid volume. 1 cup is 8 fluid ounces. 8 ounces is 1 cup. And so you probably have used measuring cups at home to measure 1 full cup into baking and stuff. And that is 8 ounces. We have 1 pint is the measurement unit we use. 1 quart is a measurement unit we use that you may not be familiar with exactly how much it is, and so this lesson should help us out with that. 1/2 gallon is one of those cartons of milk that you might buy, and 1 gallon is that gallon of milk you might buy. So just to compare, 1 quart is a half of this one. Quart, right? 1/4, 1 quarter, 1/4. That is this gallon cut into 4 equal pieces. So it's 1/4 of a gallon. And then 1 pint is always 1/2 of the quart. So that's how those work out. About how much liquid is in a mug of hot chocolate. A mug of hot chocolate, I mean, as long as we're not being piggies about it, it would be about 1 cup, right? A little coffee mug is about 1 cup. Units of weights are in ounces, which is about the size of a couple of pencils, or a pencil maybe is 1 ounce-ish. 1 pound is about a loaf of bread in weight, or maybe 3 apples could be about a pound. And 1 ton is about the weight of a normal car. So what would I weigh a grapefruit in? I would weigh a grapefruit in maybe pounds, right? A grapefruit is a type of fruit that looks like this. Grapefruit is like an orange, but a little bit bigger, and it's pink inside. It's a little more sour than an orange. It's sweet and sour at the same time. So how much does a grapefruit weigh? Is it closer to 1 ounce, like a pencil weight, or like a bread type of weight, or a car weight? Definitely not a car weight. It's more like a pound. I would weigh it in pounds. Like a place value, the metric system is based on multiples of 10, which makes those easier to calculate. Our system of measurement, inches and yards and feet, is not in a base 10 system. It doesn't really have a good base system. You've got multiples of 3 of in some way sometimes, so it's not as easy to calculate things. Each unit is 10 times as large as the next smaller unit for the metric system. And below are some common metric benchmarks. So we use a customary measurement system, the foot, the yard, gallons, pints. And in most of the world, they use the metric system calculated by a base 10. But here's how those measurements compare to real life things. A millimeter is that tiny, tiny piece that is in between in the ruler, the tiniest part of marking on the ruler. And you see they're holding like a little nail there. It's like the point of the nail. So it's very tiny, not like the whole nail, just the very, very point of it. That's about a milliliter. A centimeter is 10 times bigger than that. And you can figure it's about the width of your finger. And a decimeter is 10 centimeters, so 10 times more than the centimeters, and it's about the width of your hand. A meter is 10 times of these, and a meter is about the width of a doorway, a normal doorway. About the width of that is a meter. It's very similar to a yard in the customary measurement system. It's just a couple inches bigger. And a kilometer, you could walk a kilometer in about 10 minutes, so it's a little bit shorter than a mile. It's 1,000 meters, so 1,000 of these door lengths, kilo means 1,000, so 1,000 of these, not lengths, sorry, widths, the door widths, you put 1,000 of those lined up, and that is a kilometer. And it takes about 10 minutes to walk a kilometer. Remember, it was 20 minutes to walk a mile, so. A kilometer is a metric unit for measuring length or distance. The benchmark shows the distance you can walk in about 10 minutes. What about metric units for volume? Remember, with the customary measurement, we had gallons and pints and quarts and half gallons and a cup. In a milliliter, that's about an eyedropper's worth of liquid. And a liter is like a water bottle size. When you buy those soda bottles that are kind of big bottles, those are 2 liters. So half of that would be 1 liter. About how much medicine is usually in a medicine bottle. In the whole bottle, it's about 120 milliliters. Oh, I missed a question above. Let's go back up to that. I spelled that wrong. I messed up. Let me fix it. Milliliters. There we go. Let's back up here. I missed this. Is the length of your classroom greater than or less than 1 kilometer? Remember, 1 kilometer, it would take me 10 minutes to walk that far. So is it going to take me 10 minutes to walk from one side of our classroom to the other? No, not even close to that. So it's much smaller than the length, than a kilometer, or less than. I should have written less than. It's less than a kilometer. Kilometer is km. You can just put km. Much less than a kilometer. Let's look at metric units of mass. Mass was like weight sorts of things. And so in our customary measurements, we had the pencil representing the ounce, bread being representing a pound, and a car representing a ton. In metric units, 1 gram is about the weight of a dollar bill, not very heavy at all, and a kilogram is about the weight of a baseball bat. So about how much is the mass of a paperclip? Would it be better to compare a paperclip's weight to the baseball bat or to the dollar bill? Yeah, to the dollar bill, so it would be 1 gram. Okay, for the Sharon show, They ask us to use the benchmarks to choose the metric unit you would use. I'm going to ask us to practice both the metric unit and the customary unit because this next part of it practices the customary, and I figure we can do the same for both. I brought over the pages for customary measurements. These are the ones that we use here in the United States. Measurements for length, measurements for weight, volume, liquid volume, and the measurements for weight. Then the metric system uses the length here, the liquid volume, and the mass, the weight. Okay, so if we were doing the mass of a strawberry, the mass is sort of similar to weight. It just has the relationship to gravity. So we're using mass and weight from the customary weight, and then from the metric system, we're using mass. The mass of a strawberry. Would it be more similar to that of a bat or that of a dollar bill? It'd be like a couple dollar bills probably. So, but it would make more sense to measure it in comparison to the dollar bill than the bat, right? Because it's much less than a bat. So we're gonna say I would measure it in grams. It's not gonna be 1 gram, it might be a couple grams, but I would measure it in grams. And in comparison, let's look at the customary measurement of weight. Would I compare it to a ton? Would I measure it in pounds? Or would I measure it in like pencils comparison? I would go with the smaller one, right? So I would use ounces for number 1 for the strawberry. What's the best use of measurement in customary and metric units? For the length of your cell phone, if you had a cell phone, measure the length of the cell phone. So we're up here at length for both of them. In the metric system, a millimeter is this tiny pin thing. That would be a lot, so that's probably not best. A centimeter is about the width of your finger. That's kind of, it would be quite a few of those too. And a decimeter is about the width of your hand. Probably measure that. I would probably measure that in decimeters. Only usually we tend to use centimeters, but we'll go with decimeters by the width of my hand. Okay. If I was using the customary units, an inch is about my fingertip there, from my knuckle to the tip of my finger, and a foot is about the length of a license plate. I could go one or the other. It's smaller than this though, so I guess I'll just count a few of these an inch. So I'd measure it in inches, the length of the cell phone in inches. Circle the best estimate. The width of, let's just use your desk rather than the teacher's desk. Let's look at your desk since it's probably right in front of you. The width of your desk, would you say it's 10 meters or 1 meter? Oh, your desk isn't anything like that. Let's say your 2 desks put together, let's say that. 10 meters or 1 meter is how the length of your 2 desks put together are. Let's look at those meters. 10 meters, where's my meters? Here they are. A meter is the width of the door. So 10 of them would be 10 doors lined up. Is that desk more comparable to 10 of those meters or just 1 of those meters? Yeah, it's just 1 meter. In customary measurements, if you were measuring your desk, what would you use? Would you use inches, foot, or yard? Especially if we put 2 desks together, probably yard if it's 2 desks together like we did for that. I would use a yard. 1 yard and 1 meter are very close to each other. They're off by about 3 inches. What about the amount of liquid that a punch bowl holds? A punch bowl would be like a bowl that you'll put a punch in for like a party. If somebody's having a party and they want the red juice stuff, the red sugary juice that you drink. So a punch bowl. About how much liquid fits in there. Would it be a milliliter, which is just an eyedropper amount? Would you measure it milliliters and go squeeze out little by little how much was in the punch bowl? Or would you measure it in a liter? Yeah. Oh, would you measure it in 2 liters or 20 liters? So these are like a small water bottle. So I could see that a punch bowl that holds lots of people's drinks probably would be 20 liters. If we just had 2 liters in there, only about 2 people could go, maybe 3 people could go get punch, and then it's gone right away. So 20 liters. If it was customary measurements, it depends on the size of the punch bowl, but probably I would measure in gallons. There might be a gallon or two in there, so, or three maybe, so gallons. Let's say it might be maybe 2 or 3 gallons in a punch bowl. How about the distance between Seattle and San Francisco? Is that 6 miles or 680 miles? San Francisco is in California. Seattle is in Washington, near the Canadian border, all the way straight north from San Francisco, going all the way up toward the Canadian border. So it is definitely not 6 miles away. It's 680 miles away, at least. And in kilometers, it would be even more than that, remember, because it took me 20 minutes to walk a mile and about 10 minutes-ish to walk a kilometer. A kilometer isn't half a mile, but it's somewhere around there, maybe a little less than that even. So it would take me quite a bit kilometers. I would measure it in kilometers, obviously, not meters, because that would be awful. A kilometer is 1,000 meters, so I would measure it in kilometers. Anyways, that is this lesson. It's just trying to help your brain make the connections to how you measure, like, not even how you measure things. It's what these units of measurements are like, so that you can have these connections in your mind when we're talking about these lengths and widths and volume and weight.